Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journey, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2021. And that brings us to a release made by Criterion of a title that is designated Spy Number 1101. And this is a film from 2019, and it is a work from Josh Safdie and Benny Safdie. And here we have the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo Criterion release of this title, which is Uncut Gems. Before I begin, let me just apologize in advance. I usually have a pin microphone, which I use for purposes of these videos, but unfortunately, there have been some unavoidable technical difficulties with the use of such microphone. And so, in order to avoid any sound issues, I will, from this point forward, at least for the next few videos at least, use the microphone that is available on the recording device of the phone that I'm using at the moment for the recording purposes. So no microphone, so the sound might be a little bit different, and for that I really apologize, but I will do my best to improve the sound quality going forward where I can. But for the meantime, just keep that in mind in case you notice the sound change. But I hope it's not too distracting. But once again, my deepest apologies for that. This is the work from 2019 from Josh and Benny Safdie, the Safdie brothers. And it has among its stellar, electrifying cast people like Idina Menzel and Judd Hirsch and Eric Bogosian and Julia Fox and The Weeknd, Kevin Garnett, and of course, the main character, Howard, as portrayed by the one, the only, Adam Sandler. Wow, this is the work, Uncut Gems. I think if we were to try to focus in on the plot or story of Uncut Gems, I think we could, of course, focus on this main character, Howard, the Adam Sandler character, and his various adventures or misadventures, as the case may be. We primarily get to know him, or we understand that he is working and has a lot of involvement, to a certain degree anyway, in what is known as the Diamond District area of New York. This is a New York story set in 2012. So it's set a few years ago. So there's a type of maybe dating, or there's an aging, a purposefully applied aging to the entire environment or setting or scene. This is also due to the fact that among those adventures or misadventures is that Howard is also very much keen on gambling and sports, in particular basketball, and he, through a certain set of circumstances, gets to meet Kevin Garnett, the basketball player, professional basketball player. And through this various interaction, we understand that Howard is very much excited about the sort of adrenaline rush that comes to, with regard to many things. For example, the watching games, being into the basketball games that he's really into, and also gambling, and also the need and that feeling of rush and excitement and trying to make a successful parlay or successful bet or bid or bet that will hopefully end up leading to big winnings. And so this is the type of character that he is. Also, in terms of his personal life, we understand that he has a family. He is married with children, Dina, the Dina Menzel character. But his relationship with his wife seems to be, for a number of reasons, quite very much so on the rocks, on the verge of divorce. And one of those reasons perhaps is due to the fact that Howard is also romantically involved with another woman. This is Julia, the Julia character, whom we meet also through the circumstances of the KMH Jewelers, Gems and Jewelry in the Diamond District. And also they have this personal relationship, which we understand through various situations and scenarios that are presented throughout the course of the film. So that's Howard's sort of personal life, and then his maybe his character makeup, as it were. Now, these are compounded quite exponentially and intensely so by further developments and say, page-turning plot points, as it were. So one of which is the relationship that he has with the Arno character, the Eric Bogosian character. He owes quite a lot of money to essentially this type of debtor or loan shark type of character, with whom he has a familiar relationship, by the way. And also there is the idea of this opal, this from the African continent, that was essentially smuggled into New York. And due to certain circumstances as well, Howard believes that this opal, which is still rough, it is not freshly cut or polished, it is still in its rough, raw form, embedded within the rock in which it was found, within the particular mine which we encounter at the very outset of the film, by the way. Howard believes that this holds a great deal of value, to the point that he concocts these many different plans with the hope of trying to essentially up his winnings to an essential or quite exponential degree. He wants to make money. He wants to win. He wants to succeed. And all the way through these adventures or misadventures, we see him try to succeed, and for whatever reason, either due to external circumstances beyond his control, force majeure types of things, or due to his own internal failings, he is unable to succeed for whatever reason. Now, those points of lack of success in the various plots that he is hatching then lead to further developments and further changes of plan within Howard's mind, to the point where he's then trying to readjust, escape or evade those forces that are after him, as well as at the same time trying to plan out certain things just right in order to be able to come out on top, get a lot of money, become a success, win, as well as feel the rush, that adrenaline rush that comes with the risk of taking chances. It might be gambling, it might be concocting these plans, it might be doing whatever it takes in order not just to survive, but to win. And where he fails, he then tries to pick himself back up again and do something completely different. And then he tries and he fails and he tries and he fails. But through that effort, or through those various machinations, of plot and character development, we come to realize that Howard is very much determined on many fronts. And where he finds difficulty, where he finds challenge, there are moments of maybe sincere awakening, or sincere maybe self-examination, maybe a real genuine doubting of his own self-worth. And that's also true in the various character relationships that we have along the way. As I say, we have his marriage, which is very much on the rocks. It's almost to the point of no return, if that, right, or it is actually beyond the point of any kind of salvation. And we have his relationship with Julie, which also has its own ups and downs, and there are certain doubts along the way whether that relationship too will indeed survive or not, due to various circumstances, not least of which are due to, for example, the appearance of the weekend, or other ideas of jealousy, sexual jealousy or emotional jealousy and the like, as well as all the pressures that are imposed or that are felt by Howard at this particular time, whether they be due to external things beyond his control, or whether they be pressures based on things that were his own fault to begin with. In any event, all these lines that he is all trying to plan and manipulate and just really try to recalibrate and replan and rethink. All these threads all seem to build and build and build and build to the point where it becomes this almost this hyper imbalanced, totally off the wall, intense, high pressure cooker type of scenario, or multiple set of scenarios, to the point where it reaches this incredible fever pitch type of climax, or a series of set pieces leading up to an overall sense of climax. That is stunning. It is stunning. It is overwhelming. It becomes this, as I say, this rush of feeling and excitement and adventure, to the point where even where we, at some point along the way, in particular maybe in the early parts, where we as viewers might, maybe some of us might feel like we don't understand why Howard is really doing these things. Why is he making these choices? Why, when he can pay off a certain debt, why does he instead use that money in order to try to make another bet, in order to double or triple or quadruple his earnings, etc.? Why doesn't he just satisfy his debt right now while he has a chance? He can walk away, but he doesn't. He makes those choices to try to go big. He might fall flat on his face along the way. He might fail quite miserably, but he still does it, and he still tries. But and some of those choices might seem to some to be somewhat confusing or inexplicable, but really, ultimately, as the story progresses and as the film progresses through the bravura style and the beautiful setting and the rush of atmosphere and style and music and the almost the hypnotic grace of the way that the camera flows and the color glides and the richness of the atmosphere of New York, and this becomes a real full-bodied New York film to the max. And when you get all those elements and then some together, as well as the powerhouse performances from all the actors concerned, especially Adam Sandler himself, you come to realize that Howard is one of these supremely charismatic characters in cinema, that is so charismatic, so likable, even in terms of his faults, even in terms of his fallibility and his failings as a character, as a human being, as a husband, as a father, as a lover, as a businessman, as a human being, these sorts of things. Even where there are failings, and where this film acknowledges those failings and shows us those failings, and even where at some point maybe he himself might be realizing his own failings, still, there is something about him that makes us want to root for him. There is something about him, about Howard, about Adam Sandler's Howard, that makes us want to root for him, that makes us feel like we are along the ride with him. Thus, we are enveloped by this allure, this power of wanting not just to survive, but wanting to win. And not just wanting to win, but wanting to win big. This is, I think, one of the great strengths of Uncut Gems. It becomes this intense thriller, suspense thriller that operates on all these various planes all at the same time. And when they come together and converge, wow, cinematic fireworks ensue, and then some. So this is, I think, just a prime example of this electrifying type of cinema. The Safdie brothers are a force to be reckoned with. And this work, Uncut Gems, is undoubtedly it's electrifying, absolutely electrifying. I should say here, let me say here that I visited, or I came to this film somewhat late. I know this was released in 2019, but unfortunately, due to circumstances here, I was not able to watch it upon its initial release. So I came to watch the film somewhat later, prior to the Criterion release, but somewhat later. And then I must say, too, that over the course of this YouTube channel, I received so many lovely comments from people saying to me or recommending to me, "Oh, Daisuke, you have to watch Uncut Gems. It's really great. It's really great." So I just want to say to everyone who recommended the film to me, over these years. Thank you so much, my dear friends, for doing so. And I apologize for the lateness in my timing in being able to visit this film, but I have, and I have again, thanks to this wonderful Criterion release with the 4K UHD Blu-ray combo, which we'll get to momentarily. This is a great release, by the way. It's a great release for a number of reasons, but we'll get to those as well. But I should say that with that encouragement and watching this film again the first time, and then watching it again upon the Criterion release, and then again a number of times upon this Criterion release, I am just stunned every single time. I was taken aback. I was shocked by a lot of the turns and the surprises. There's some twists and turns that I didn't see coming. I was thinking in my head, especially upon initial release, of course, that, for example, a certain character, maybe certain characters would do one thing, and then they would the events would completely surprise me and completely take me, just take me aback. And that surprise, that sense of surprise, and left me with this real enriched type of feeling. And I don't mean necessarily plot twists or and I don't mean anything of that sort. I mean just turns of character development. And like, for example, I can say that when I first met in the film, when we first meet the character, say, of Julia, as we see her in, say, the first few scenes that we meet her, I got the impression that maybe her character would become this certain, maybe it would go into a certain direction towards the middle and then into the end of the film. But in fact, where the film ends up going with respect to the Julia character, with respect to her character, is in a completely different direction, to the point where her character becomes so complex and so multidimensional, and ultimately one of the most emotional anchors of the film in this beautiful sort of turn of events. And also there are other characters too, like characters whom we meet, and you might think maybe there is a sinister aspect to a character, but in fact, nothing could be further from the truth in terms of where they end up going. There's a scene involving a hotel towards the end, and a particular, a very wealthy person. What happens here, and what happens to that particular character? Ultimately, what the agenda of this character is, or there are certain situations involving the relationship. Other relationships between Howard and Dina, for example, or Howard and Arno, or things of that sort. And also, so the idea of the way in which the plot, the page-turning plot points take us. This is one of the great strengths. Another great strength, of course, is the Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler is a standout. He is a standout. There is this way in which Adam Sandler he's carrying himself physically. There is this way in which his clothes, the clothes are also very much an important part of the character, and there's a great supplement dealing with the fashion, and we'll talk about that in the supplement section. But there's this great way in which Adam Sandler's Howard carries himself as he walks down the Manhattan streets, as he's talking on his phone, as he's trying to text and just looking up, just trying to think. He's thinking, he's maybe subliminally mimicking people that he had, like Kevin Garnett. There's a moment where maybe he's unintentionally mimicking his movements or just because he admires him so much. And when he's talking to someone, you realize that he's thinking about perhaps totally different things at once. He's trying to think how he can take advantage of a certain situation, how he can make money here, what's to do with the opal, how is he going to get this back, how is he going to succeed in getting a certain amount of estimated earnings from an auction, what happens with his certain family members are involved, what happens when the particular estimate isn't up to his particular expectations, what is he going to do in advance, how is he going to convince people to go along with what it is he has to say, especially considering the fact that his being, at least in the context of this particular world, is not necessarily the most, say, it's not a character that, let's say, everyone is willing to follow in a given moment. At the on the contrary, this world is one where Howard is very seldom listened to, and so in this context, he still tries to make it out on top. You have to admire that type of spirit and drive. And in the hands of Adam Sandler, it is just volcanic. It is so volcanic and so mesmerizing, and you can tell that there are so many layers within the performance. It is, uh, it is unbelievably rich and complex. So great. It is so great. So that is one of the great strengths, obviously, of this film, and then also just the depth of say knowledge and style and insight and reference upon reference upon reference that is built in to this film, thanks to the great care and skill and intelligence of the Safdie brothers in making this. I mean, this is a very complex web of references, of different types of how chronology is used, basketball references, gambling references. So many of these areas, also this idea of Jewish American communities in New York and this particular family and how that is expressed, and especially in the context, or for example, in the context of Howard and his family life, his relationship with his children, his relationship with his in-laws and the other generations, and also his wife in particular, as well as the school community and the like, and also himself, how that comes across in terms of his own, say, character and identity, and also that of the situation around him. And this is all to do, or in large part, of course, to do with how it's put together in the hands of the Safdie brothers. And so this is a very important part. And also the way in which the character of New York is presented. This is very much a New York film. It feels like you can feel the grittiness of just walking down the street, and you can feel the air almost. It has that sense, and the way that the buildings are, and you go into a building and the doors open and close and the people around, and you walk out, and there's so many things going on at once. But this is New York City. It's a wonderful New York City film. And then, as I say, the references upon references upon references that exist almost at a meta level, in this beautiful meta level. For example, we have, or before I get to that, it also talks about other areas of, say, expertise and skill. I mean, I mentioned also the expressions of, say, Jewish American culture and identity, also the idea of basketball and the details and the wonderful minutia when it comes to the specifics about the like rebounds as well as scoring points. I'm not a basketball expert by any means, but so when I watch this film, I don't understand everything that is being discussed, but I can still follow along because the film still provides a type of window for novices like myself to still be able to follow along to a certain degree and kind of understand what's going on and root for these particular protagonists where I can as a viewer. So that's great, but it really goes deep into that particular world, not least of which because of the presence of Kevin Garnett. And this is 2012. And also related to that, too, it goes deep into the world of gambling. And again, this notion of sports gambling, parlays, how that works, this is all very much, again, stuff that I don't know. But the film, I think, does a really good job of maybe explaining, or at the very least allowing viewers like myself to be able to follow along so we can understand more or less when Howard's winning or when Howard's behind or something like that. So this is, I think, and it goes deep into gambling. You know, speaking of gambling, I think this is a really interesting point that I didn't realize until sometime after I'd finished watching the film, which is I note that Martin Scorsese is listed as one of the executive producers of the film. And this is a great link. I'm not sure. I mean, this is such a great link because, for example, Martin Scorsese, within his own wonderful work, cinematic work, made a film in the 1990s, which is called Casino, with Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci and Sharon Stone. And in that, there's a particular scene in the Scorsese work, Casino, where they're talking about a character who is referred to as KK Ichikawa. And there's a scene where it's a montage involving this particular high stakes gambler in the casino, and he bets big. He always bets big, but due to certain circumstances, he's in the casino one night and he's betting rather small, relatively speaking, to his ordinary bets. So there's a great voiceover at that point by the character of Ace Rothstein, who's the Robert De Niro character, and he says about this particular high roller, big stakes gambler who's betting relatively small compared to how he usually bets. He says, and I paraphrase it, I might be getting exactly right, but he says something along the lines of, he says where, he was winning, but for gamblers like Keiki Ichikawa, it wasn't, he didn't think of it as winning 10,000. He thought of it as losing 90,000. And I remember that quote in Casino, and I thought, this is such a perfect quote to explain or help to understand the mindset of Howard when he's engaging in these various parlays and gambling and trying to win big with that next particular bet, right? When he's whole, when he gets a certain circumstance where he gets money and he's made whole, essentially, he can essentially pay off his debts, essentially. He doesn't do that. He decides to take the next step, take the next plunge, take the next risk, which can be very dangerous indeed. And it ends up becoming very, very dangerous and a very he has to traverse the land very, very carefully lest he falls into some very dangerous and perhaps deadly trap. But in any event, when from his point of view, it could be said that much like the character in Casino, the Scorsese work, when he is whole, he doesn't think of it as a win. He thinks of it as losing money. And so perhaps that kind of mindset could also be applied, and which could help to explain why he still wants to bet big. And that type of feeling, while I can't necessarily relate directly, I can understand it on those terms. And when I think about it on those terms, I can go along with Howard's story and I can root for him. And I do root for him. And I root for him big. And I want him to win big because from his point of view, he wants to win. He thinks of it not as winning, he thinks of it as losing. And so in order to avoid the loss, he wants to win big. And that type of idea or mindset in the context of gambling is actually transposed to the picture of his own self-worth as a man, as a human being. He doesn't want to lose. Even if he's made whole, he wants to succeed, and he wants to succeed big. That's the idea of ambition, and sometimes it might be described as greed, it might be described as ambition, depending on how one looks at it in the circumstances, of course. But in the context of ambition, in the context of trying to win, trying to succeed, this is in many ways a type of archetypical story where of protagonists and antagonists, and the protagonist wanting to succeed in some realm, some fashion. In this case, that type of protagonist action is one where I think it can be accessible to viewers like me and like many others. And indeed it has, I think, based on the wonderful response from many people with regard to this film. So I think in that way, the gambling aspect is very, very apropos in terms of the direct nature of it, in the context of the plot, as well as how it is applied to the very sort of metaphorically to the very essence of Howard's character itself. So it's brilliant the way it's used here. And then finally, to round out the discussion about the wonderful way this film is handled in the hands of the Safdie brothers, you have reference upon reference upon reference made. I think, for example, the music and that adds a certain almost timeless nature, but also a wonderful maybe a retro nostalgic air to it. It's linked to 2012, but that the use of music and also other details make it feel almost like a film that's from a time before that. It almost feels like an 80s film, all the way down to like the synthesizer type of score, all the way down to the use of the font in the titles. It almost looks like, or in some of the title cards, it looks almost like a font that would be used in a John Carpenter film from the 1980s. And those little details are really great. Also, I should point out too, I don't know if it was done on purpose, if it was or it wasn't, I'm not sure, but even so, it's a great detail. And again, it goes back to almost the meta treatment of having Adam Sandler in this film. I mean, you just can't take your eyes off him. But then at the same time, he becomes Howard on the one hand, and yet he's still Adam Sandler on the other. And that combination is just remarkable. And it's genius and it's brilliant. And here's one example for me anyway, which is there's the character of Julia, the key character of Julia and the relationship between Howard and Julia. And I, whenever I heard the name Julia, and I was almost immediately reminded of the great Adam Sandler film, right? He starred in the film called The Wedding Singer, and there's a character in The Wedding Singer played by Drew Barrymore, who's named Julia, and there's a really lovely joke, a line of humor. The character Julia Gulia. But anyway, Julia in that film, The Wedding Singer, was a very popular film. And so when I watched this film with Adam Sandler playing Howard, who is there with a very key character named Julia, Wedding Singer vibes emerge within me. So, but that's, I think, part of the great charm and appeal of watching Adam Sandler's performance, again, in the hands of the Safdie brothers, in this brilliant depiction, in this New York film, with all the thrills and traits of a suspense film that is just on fire, and it's just fireworks and electrifying. You don't know what's going to happen next. Things build, and the pressure mounts. Is someone going to break? Who's going to break first? That is the question. And we so want Howard not just to withstand the pressure, not just to not break, but to break free and to succeed, in the highest levels of elation and the highest levels of adrenaline rush possible. This is that film, Uncut Gems. So the Criterion Collection has, during this year of 2021, released this film, Uncut Gems, at spine number 1101. I should point out that I think, I'm not sure exactly what the circumstances are, but I'm assuming that maybe the plans regarding this release were such that maybe due especially to the 4K UHD Blu-ray combo release plans, which I think were made maybe somewhat subsequent or later. This spine number 1101 release came a little bit after some of the later spine numbers, and so but the timing is only by about a month, so it's not that far off. And I think in the long run, again, this will be remembered as spine number 1101. So but it was released a little bit later, but that's okay. Again, it was well worth the wait. It is well worth the wait because we are getting this wonderful package from Criterion. It is the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo, which means that we have two discs within it. It's first of all this wonderful, cool looking digipack format with the outer shell here and then the inside here with the Furby. The eyeballs of the Furby. I think this is the Furby, which is one of the really key trinkets, lovely trinkets of the film. But anyway, you open it up here and it has this disc layering format or process or system. The discs don't touch, so that's okay. There's a little bit of space in between the top layer disc and the bottom layer disc, but one of which is the Blu-ray and the other being the 4K UHD in this wonderful digipack format. I love this kind of look to it. Now I have maybe come across some comments, say online, etc., maybe making some critical comments about the cover itself, this particular picture. I am okay with it. I think it is a very simple cover, but it's a cover of Howard. It's Adam Sandler's Howard, and he's here in this particular situation, this particular still, and he's smiling. This is a really key maybe look of Howard. I mean, maybe it's there are points of the film where he is indeed smiling. There are points where he's really down on his luck, really down on his luck, like on a trunk in a car, or maybe after having been severely beaten up or something. But there are also moments in the film where he is very happy. And so I think that is one of the key expressions of Howard, or one of the aspects of Howard's character. And so in that way, I think I really love this just simple yet effective and very direct representation of one aspect of Howard's character in his life. So this is, I think, one of that great representation. So this is the cover here. And the booklet is here as well. I'll talk about this booklet. It's a great booklet. This is really great. But before we get to that, the the presentation and release itself. So this is purported to be based on 4K digital transfer of a film, once again, which is from 2019, presented in an aspect ratio of 2.39 to 1. Transfer was created in Dolby Vision HDR 4K resolution, and a Dolby Atmos soundtrack. And so, and then you have the Blu-ray presented in high definition SDR. So we have, as I say, the 4K UHD presentation, and then you have the Blu-ray alternative. Each looks brilliant. Each looks really brilliant. And I must say, too, that here again, I think the 4K UHD presentation is stellar. It's stellar. I mentioned in an earlier video where I'm not always maybe I still always have to figure out if I'm totally with the 4K UHD format or not, and sometimes maybe I don't feel like it's necessary, especially if there's a really reliable, say, DVD or Blu-ray alternative. But here, I must say that I'm very impressed. I'm impressed with the Blu-ray, and I'm very impressed with the 4K UHD presentation here, the way it looks and the way it sounds. I don't have any other non-Criterion versions of this on physical media discs, so it's hard for me to compare it. But just in terms of a feel and atmosphere, and I don't sense any distractions. On the contrary, I'm swept in immediately from the very opening images, and also to the lovely. I don't comment on it too much. Maybe I should comment on it more often. But the menu, the Criterion menu, there's this almost type of sort of maybe like a voyage through the universe type of sequence or sequences, because there are more than one actually, which is a wonderful linking. It's metaphorical, but it's also a wonderful linking material between one geographical location and another geographical location. In fact, one place and then another actually a part of the inside of someone's the human cavity, actually. But in any event, this linking material also serves as a type of metaphorical image for, say, traveling or making a voyage throughout what seems like the celestial universe or something, which is a very much I think a metaphor, or almost a state of transcendentalism in one sense of that particular outlook or perspective. But this is what greets us when we put in the discs or any of the discs in the player and the machines. And so it's a really lovely type of use of color and movement. And it's really evocative and emblematic of the film itself. So well done, Criterion, for that also lovely detail. So here we have, again, the two discs. You can choose which format you prefer. I should point out, too, that like with other 4K UHD combo packs or releases, the 4K UHD disc does not have the other supplements in the sub-supplement menu. So if you want to have the supplements, you're going to go to the Blu-ray disc for that. But before we go to the supplements, we should talk about what you can listen to as an option on either disc, which is the commentary track. So there is an optional commentary track. The commentary track is described as being from 2019, and it's with one of the producers, Sebastian Bear-McClarg, and editor Ronald Bronstein, and also, or one of the editors, Ronald Bronstein, and then also Josh and Benny Safdie. So here and it's described as from 2019. And so this is great. This was the first time that I had the opportunity to listen to this commentary track. And so I listened to it after watching the film a number of times. It's wonderful. It's really wonderful. They have a wonderful discussion rapport between and among them. They talk about, for instance, some of the key scenes, like the early scenes, the introductory scenes with the mine, the Walo mine scenes, and the environmental conditions about that, the use of the special effects, the computer effects, the significance of, say, things like colonoscopies and how they figure into maybe the grand scheme of the presentation of Howard, not just as a human being, as an individual, and one of the potential points of pressure, as it were, in his life, or lack thereof, depending on what eventually happens with that particular line. and also maybe how this might be related to depictions of, say, cultural identity and cultural self-awareness, especially in the context of Jewish American identity, at least from the viewpoint of Josh and Benny Safdie. So, and again, this is just it goes into a discussion too about the work of Darius Kanji, the photography work of Darius Kanji, and his significant contribution here. It's just the look of the film in Darius Kanji's hand, the director of photography, is just cannot be emphasized. It's just truly a beautiful use of camera and light and color. I mean, there's a particular sequence which is also remarked upon, where in a nightclub scene, where we have a significant involvement of the weekend, and we have the way in which the glowing lights pick up the glowing of the shirts that are worn all the way down to that reddish orange shirt of Howard. And so this has, and also the white color of Julia and others. And so uh, how this particular sequence was shot, and the idea of film versus digital, etc., with certain exceptions of that nature, really inside. Also working with Kevin Garnett, and the real detail that needed to be paid attention to on the part of the Safdie brothers in the context of Garnett. This was released in 2019, but it was set in 2012, which means that they had to take into account Kevin Garnett's, say, the realistic logistics of playing on the road, because certain games, basketball games, form a really key plot link. And so they had to take really great care to make sure that they followed that authentically. And they also take the occasion to talk about what a great performance he gives, playing himself. It's a great performance, and there's real moments of high tension and drama. There's a great moment where he confronts Howard, and tries to confront Howard on what Kevin Garnett perceives as being a type of a real a bitter hypocrisy on Howard's part. But Howard, to his credit, holds his own and defends himself even when he is being confronted in this nature. So those are, I think, great examples of the wonderful nuanced performance, and they. The people on the commentary, I think, really pay attention to that in a lovely way. Also, they talk about the idea of the world of the diamond district, the logistics of jewelry. They talk about the significance of the Furby as well. The little details too, like there's a scene where the Idina Menzel character, Dina, Howard's wife, is seen in the kitchen with the microwave, and this is after a very interesting evening. It's like a school play, that turns very unexpected for Howard and company, and for Dina as well. And so she's obviously very mad at him at this particular. And there's the idea of the heating up the food in the microwave. That's such a key moment too. And also here the idea of the children, and how the children, and other scenes too of the family gatherings, and how these are other aspects of Jewish American culture. And there's details too. And again, I'm not directly a part of this culture community, and so there are many things that just I don't. There are many references that I don't get, but there are certain references that Josh and Benny Safdie present to us in the commentary track, and little details about certain, say, traditions at a sort of large family gathering that takes place around the middle of the film, and things of that nature that I think are really insightful and very helpful indeed. And they also talk about appearances like Tilda Swinton. They also talk about how they try to approach the idea of narrative exposition. They talk about the meaning of details like smoothies, and Julia, and Adam Sandler character. They talk about Adam Sandler, of course, and also they talk about the uncut gems. What does this mean? This phrase, uncut gems, is it referring specifically and only to the opal, or is it referring maybe to the idea of kind of the roughness of the exterior look that might indicate, or maybe might not indicate, what really lies underneath? And maybe that could be said as well for a character like Howard. Howard has this maybe rough looking, almost loser type of look about him on the outside, but is he really that way on the inside, or is he really trying to make himself better? Is he really trying to succeed in this world where everyone is telling him to fail? Can he succeed? So maybe and is he the uncut gem of the title? And that, I think, is a really insightful commentary point there. Again, this is a great commentary track. I learned so much, and I hope to listen to it many, many times to learn even more things about this. But the commentary track is available, so please check it out if you can. But now let us go to the supplements section itself. And as I indicated earlier, the supplements can be found on the Blu-ray disc supplements submenu. So you go to the Blu-ray disc here, and you go to the submenu, and when you click on the supplements menu, you get, wow, it's not even big enough to fit all the supplements. You have to scroll down and scroll down further to get all the supplements. There are so many here. It's wonderful, wonderful. So I think there are, there are some supplements that appeared in prior non-Criterion releases of Uncut Gems. And so, as I say, I don't have any prior releases. This is the only release I have. So this would be the first time that I'm watching these supplements. So there might be some repeats. I think for the most part, though, there are, new Criterion-produced supplements. So in any event, let us go through each of the supplements and to figure out what they are. So the first is Money on the Street, The Making of Uncut Gems. And this is about 30 minutes. This is a 2019 documentary. And I understand this is a carryover, but this is the first time I'm watching it. And this is great. Again, you get a lot of information that complements or supplements information that one could have picked up, say, listening to the commentary track. But it's great to hear it and hear from other people as well. And to see the interaction on the set, and Adam Sandler, Idina Menzel, and Kevin Garnett, etc. There's discussion again about, say, the logistics of basketball, the choice of the time setting. Again, it's set in not in the exact time of the release of the film, but several years prior. The shooting style of the Safdie brothers, the casting choices behind the key roles, including, of course, Adam Sandler. And the idea, too, again, talking about Howard as a character, and the description here within this documentary about Howard as a character, to explain who Howard is and why he does what he does. What are Howard's motivations, I think, can be summed up in a phrase that's mentioned here, which is so, so great, which is Howard is not satisfied with who he is. Howard is not satisfied with who he is. I think that explains so much. That explains so much as to why he makes all the choices that he does in this film. Even the ones that are just outrageously, just almost designed to fail. He still makes them because he is not satisfied with. He wants to be someone other than who he is. I think that explains it so well. So for that and other reasons, I think this documentary is well worth checking out. Money on the Street, The Making of Uncut Gems. But that's not all, because next we have a supplement which is called Studio Visit, Miyako Bellizzi, and this is from 2021. So this is, I think, yes, this is a recent supplement prepared for this Criterion release. And here, Miyako Bellizzi is talking about her work as a costume designer for this film, and also her background leading up to her relationship working on this film with the Safdie brothers. This interview is approximately 14 minutes. This is so fascinating. I am not an expert in so many fields. I don't know anything about costume design and fashion. And so for me, this type of interview is so insightful and so helpful. She speaks about the need to capture a type of essence of the period. To my mind, 2012 is not so far away, but in actual fact, especially in fashion terms, there are some details that are very much part of the period and that needed to be captured. And she captures them so well, and to capture that particular mood and atmosphere. I think particular emphasis is placed in this interview, for example, on the look of Howard and the particular jacket that he's wearing. I think you can see it here. I'm assuming it's the same jacket that he's wearing in this photo, for example. This is and how Adam Sandler himself preferred to have loose-fitting clothing, and also the details about even down to the shoes, and how the shoes were very much part of this, what she calls the gaudy look and appearance. Yes, this gaudy, almost over-reliance on flash jewelry, flashy, shiny objects to be affixed on certain points where necessary. The watch too, etc. And how this, and also the thing about, let's say, the custom made, was it KMH custom made sweatpants and things like this, and how this is perfect in terms of expressing who Howard is and the type of person that was. This is so wonderful. I'm so glad this is included. Again, this world of costume design is something that is completely beyond me. And so to have this very, very informative and easy to follow explanation and discussion from Miyako Bellizzi is so valuable. So please check this out if you can. This is approximately 14 minutes. That's not all, because then we have another 2021 supplement called Shooting Gems, Darius Kanji, approximately 13 minutes. This is an audio interview or excerpted interview with the director of photography, Darius Kanji, but then it's edited over certain sequences that are discussed here. So it's another great discussion. And as I say, the look is one of the key strength points of this film. And so Darius Kanji's comments are invaluable. So valuable, they need to be checked out or listened to here. So he's talking about learning about the Safdie brothers for the first time, heaven knows what, and becoming really curious and then interested and then excited about working with these true artists of the medium. And then also this idea of talking about French cinema, talking about Adam Sandler, and the idea of postmodern references in the look and architecture as well, and the use of lenses here, the combination here, again, a lot of this is beyond my comprehension, but the sort of combination here, anamorphic look and long lenses, and how this, according to Darius Kanji, is a look that almost goes against nature, which I thought was a very fascinating phrase, especially if the camera is moving a lot. And so I think that goes to the idea of creating not something that is meant to replicate reality per se from the perspective of the human viewpoint and the eye, but rather to create a sense of hyperrealism, something that is beyond reality. And in that way, it helps to create a sense of the unnerving and electrifying momentum that is just being pushed forward, even where we don't want to be pushed. It's just forcing us forward no matter when. That's the type of momentum that's part of the almost the electrifying volatility of the plot or plots itself. So that's an interesting comment, I think. And also the effort that was made for all the operators, the crew, the camera crew, the focus puller camera operators, the use of light. I mentioned a key sequence involving a dark, dimly lit nightclub sequence, and also shooting outdoors sometimes at night, sometimes the dimly lit hallways, or I'm sorry, the dimly lit rooms of the apartment that Howard has in the city, etc. And the idea of the look being, to use the phrases, purposefully looking garish or purposefully looking ugly. But that's the point. That's the point, because this is the world, and this is the way in which these characters are being portrayed in terms of who they are and what it is they are into. And just to get that, and this idea of getting at the truth, which is an interesting, almost an interesting counterpoint to this idea of the use of a certain combination of lenses, almost creating a hyper reality. But at the same time, that is a tool by which one gets at the truth, which is an interesting way of recalibrating or re-understanding what cinema is. Right, we're watching something that is like narrative fiction, that is essentially a story, a made-up fiction story, based true on certain elements that could be taken from real life, true, but it's a made-up story. But it's something that's made up, that's meant, therefore, to lead us into an understanding about what it is that's true, or one step closer into something about an understanding of something that is true. So that is, I think, a great, great comment. One of many, and they're all great comments. Again, the audio interview, Darius Kanji, approximately 13 minutes. That's not all, because then we have a great supplement or grouping of supplements here. This is the Humankind's Jennifer Venditti, and this is, again, a 2021 interview, approximately 15 minutes. Well, actually, there are some subparts to it. So the first of such subparts is this interview with Jennifer Venditti, and she is the casting director. And here she is talking about her work, her career leading up to her working relationship with the Safdie brothers, and she's talking about her own film, which was a film from 2007 called Billy the Kid, and how that was a way in which she was able to meet Benny and Josh Safdie, because they were such fans and admirers of this work. And from there, she also expressed this idea of really wanting to bring attention to the uniqueness of the human face, the visage of many people from all walks of life, and not just the types of what one might call conventional forms and styles and expectations of beauty, but rather that wonderful, unique, individual sense of curiosity and wonder, and yes, indeed, beauty that is held in everyone in their own individual, unique ways. And I think that is shown in her photography work. It's shown in terms of her approach to casting and just trying to find that feeling, that sense. And so here we have particular discussions, for example, about the casting of Keith William Richards in the key role of Phil, and where he came from and how he was cast. This type of casting, what quote unquote, real people. There are professional actors as well in the cast, of course, but there are also non-professionals. And this is one of the great strengths here in that combination. And so to get her perspective as casting director and her philosophy in terms of casting is really wonderful. And then we have, from there, further sub-points within this particular supplement section here. Next, we have a collection of these videotaped, say, rehearsal footage or the like. The first is with Keith William Richards, and the second is with Andrea Linsky, and the third is with Mitchell and Stuart Wenning. And the first is 8 minutes, the second is 1 minute, and the third is approximately 2 minutes. And the first is, again, the character of Phil. This is a very key role in the context of Arno and the context of Howard, etc. And then the next is Andrea Linsky, who's in the jeweler, and then also Mitchell and Stuart Wenning, and they have a really interesting appearance and look, and their appearances when they emerge in certain key sequences involving like a watch, etc. It's really interesting. So these are great examples of that casting philosophy that was expressed earlier. So Humankind's, please check it out, plus these videotaped footage of these great actors. That's not all, because then we have it's called Creating the World of Uncut Gems, and this is an interview with Sam Lysenko, 2021, approximately 14 minutes, and the production designer. And here he's talking about his career. He's talking about working with the Safdie brothers, talking about miniatures, talking about his interest in the look and design feel, meeting Josh Safdie in college, mentioning at Boston University, and talking also about his early work with the Safdie brothers, Red Bucket Films, and then also leaving momentarily in his career working for Barry Levinson, but then coming back. And then understanding that this story, Uncut Gems, is really, in many ways, it's a film about many things. But one of the things is, this is almost like he understands that this is a tribute in certain respects to the Safdie brothers' father and the Diamond District. And so this idea of what he calls the consistency of ethos of the ethos of world building, and almost how, or not almost, and how this is very important in creating an authenticity that is to respect the vision of the Safdie brothers, which is in turn respecting the visions of their memories of their family, of their lives growing up in the city, and these details and the sorts. So, and then stages versus locations is talked about, and references to other films as made as reference points, like Straight Time is referred to, Talk Radio is referred to. I mean, there's the appearance, of course, of Eric Bogosian. So those references, I think, are wonderful and brilliant. And then also this notion of capturing this feeling and atmosphere and environment of a certain period. It's a period film. It's a New York period film. So wonderful, wonderful discussion. Again, the crew that the Safdie brothers are working with in various aspects, including production design here with Sam Lysenko. Brilliant stuff. So please check out this interview if you can. Again, approximately 14 minutes. Okay, that's not all, because then we have a what's called Behind the Soundtrack, which is produced in 2020. And and it's not a Criterion Collection produced supplement per se, I understand, but it's still great that it's included here, and it's fairly recent. And this is, again, Behind the Soundtrack, and this is focusing on Daniel Lopetin, and he's also known as One-Ho-Trick's Point Never, but here he is talking about the music, the musical score that he created for the world of Uncut Gems. And here he's talking about specific cues and the deconstruction of certain specific cues together with Josh Safdie. And it's approximately 17 minutes. I cannot state enough just how much I love this musical score. This musical score is divine. It's divine. I think one of the reasons why I fell in love with this film is because of the strength of this music, and the odd, quirky choices too. Like sometimes there's this real interesting, and it's discussed in the supplement here, how choir voices are used in certain points, and also the layering of synthesizer music to suggest certain mood and feeling and emotion of the characters of Adam Sandler's character, etc. So. This is so great. It's a great score, and this is a great discussion and deconstruction of various cues. Again, Behind the Soundtrack from 2020, approximately 17 minutes. So please check it out if you can. That's not all, because then we get a section which is called Extended Scenes. And I counted here 3 of such extended scenes within this section. So one is called the KMH Showroom, approximately 5 minutes. And then the next is Howard's Apartment, approximately 4 minutes. And the third is The Weekend, 3 minutes. This third being the actual performance of The Weekend that is referred to. That is, we see glimpses of, at least, and it's part of a particular scene that is in the film. But here we have that live performance. So the extended scene section. So please check this out if you can as well. And that's not all, because then we have a what's called a screen test. Adam Sandler and Julia Fox, approximately 3 minutes. And this is a screen test where the scenario is, again, Julia and Howard, and they are in maybe a clothing store, and they're there to buy Julia a new piece of clothing, a dress, I think. And so there's a choice between one particular dress and another particular dress in this particular screen test scenario. And it's obvious that Julia likes one dress over the other, but Howard likes the other dress. And so what are they going to do? How are they going to interact? And Howard tries to manipulate the store clerk to go his way. That's great. Even in the screen test, their chemistry is it's fantastic, and they've got the characters down, and it feels so natural. It feels just like an extension of what we see in the film. So it doesn't feel like a screen test, but it feels like they've already found their characters. It's just, this is yet another expression of what their characters would have done had they gone shopping for dresses to buy for Julia. So wonderful, wonderful, and it's just a credit, a testament to their acting prowess. And so Julia Fox and Adam Sandler, they are just fantastic together. So please check this out if you can. It's about 3 minutes. And then there is a section which is called Beta Israelites, the Plight of the Ethiopian Jews, approximately 1 minute. Now, it says history in the bottom there, but my understanding or my assumption is that this is something that was made specifically for the film, because actually this is the sequence that you see Howard show Kevin Garnett early on in the film when he's describing what the opal is and how he discovered what the opal is, watching this particular, say, History Channel like thing, and getting the understanding, getting the idea that maybe what they are mining might have some kind of value, monetary value or something. So, and also it links to the idea of, again, this notion of Jewish or Jewish American cultural identity expression in cinema, and the ways in which that might lead to certain connections, whether they be authentically made on the part of the characters or not is another question, but still that has that connection or a connective link in that way. So, but I understand that it's only a minute. I understand that this is probably created specifically for the film, and in fact you have Ronald Bronstein, his name appears in that sort of title sequence before, not titles, but that title card before. So, but anyway, it's an interesting detail to have, approximately 1 minute. Then we have a number of interesting supplements here. So we have 2 short films. The first is Question and Answer. This is a 2020 short film, approximately 21 minutes, and this is so cool. This is a short film with Josh and Benny Safdie playing themselves, and they're in a diner, and the whole setup or scenario is that they are talking to us, the viewers, as though this is like something that would have been shown together with the film when it was shown on streaming, right? And so but then the idea is, after one watches the film, one can see this, and this would serve as a type of question and answer. But they are setting up, as in they've put all these hidden cameras in a diner, and they've invited Adam Sandler to come, and they were going to film him secretly and ask him questions about them. So that would serve as a question and answer, because the whole setup of the film is that Adam Sandler is notoriously hesitant to appear in a question and answer session. So the only way that they can get him to do a question and answer session is to film him in secret and do it in a diner. So that's the setup of the film. So it feels like a real life thing, but it also, we understand it's one of these things where it feels like reality, but it's actually like a constructed fiction, but they're playing themselves. And it also plays into this idea of a type of meta reality that we see in Uncut Gems itself. You know, Kevin Garnett playing Kevin Garnett. The Weeknd is there. I mentioned and so the meta quality of Adam Sandler appearing, Idina Menzel appearing, etc. So that type of meta quality is playing itself out so wonderfully in this film, in the short film, Question and Answer. And it's so funny. It's so fun. Like Jason Bateman is there, and you know, the Bateman, and I was just laughing. There's a great joke that he says about himself, and in reference to Jerry O'Connell. So and then Adam Sandler appears, and then there's this wonderful conceit that's carried through, and so you could maybe get a sense that maybe some of the lines are scripted, but then maybe some of the lines are actually off the cuff actual remarks when they're talking about the film and talking about filming, especially in the latter half of the short film. They're really getting into a discussion about what the film was, certain aspects of performance, etc. So it's so cool, clever, witty, funny, engaging. It has that meta, is it real, is it not real type of quality to it, and it's riveting, and it's talking about the film, but much like comments that you'd hear in the commentary track, and you're just having so much fun along the way. So wonderful short film, Question and Answer, from 2020. This is approximately 21 minutes. And then we have another short film that's part of the supplements. This time it's a short film, again from 2020, Goldman v. Silverman. It's approximately 6 minutes, and this features Adam Sandler and Benny Safdie, and they are street performers in New York. and they are dueling street performers in terms of street performers out amongst the Rio public and just trying to get attention, get money, and get donations, but also get attention. And they're also dueling because they're dueling with this for the same audience or for the same space. And so there's that wonderful sense of the reality, but also the reflection of these characters that have a true, genuine emotional core that becomes so riveting and almost like a powerful gut punch while the film proceeds to its conclusion or climax. So really interesting in terms of the nightlife, the atmosphere of New York, the central part of New York, and the people, real life people, the settings, and also the performance, the use of the face, the close-ups on the face, which also is reminding me a lot of how the close-ups are used in Uncut Gems. There are some real great close-ups. For instance, I'll mention it later, but the J. Hoberman essay in the booklet makes a great link between a certain close-up that is seen in Uncut Gems and a certain close-up that's seen of a very key character in the Sergio Leone film Once Upon a Time in America. And if you know Sergio Leone's works, you know that the close-up on the face is so important in his key works. And it's important too in Uncut Gems. It's important too in Goldman v. Silverman. Wow, this is a short film. It's really powerful. It shows a different aspect to, again, the almost the darkness and almost a sense of hope of wanting to do something even in the face of hopelessness in that way, which is also linked to Uncut Gems. So well done. This is so fascinating. Goldman v. Silverman, approximately 6 minutes. And then we have two trailers. One, the theatrical trailer, and then the other being what's called the Alara trailer. So two very interesting perspectives. The Alara trailer in particular has this interesting, almost another meta quality to it. So I'm glad that both trailers are included. So this is the collection of supplements that you have on this, on the Blu-ray disc section of the supplements. It is packed. It is packed. And you combine that with this commentary track, and then you have all the witty, fun nature of the Safdie brothers while also being dark and serious, while also being so full of knowledge, while also being so filled with so many references to many other things, and also deep-rooted discussions of various subject matters. It's all here. It is all here. Plus great comments from the cast and crew, key members of the crew, and insights into performance. It's all here, and it's also illuminating and exciting as part of that cinematic voyage and journey with regard to this film, Uncut Gems. So well done for being able to include all of these here. This is a true great package from Criterion. One of the best releases. Fantastic. And then I have to mention this booklet here. I've taken the liberty of removing the booklet prior to this discussion, and I am so thoroughly impressed with this. So first of all, it is one of the staple booklets. And as you know, I'm a big fan of the staple booklets. Maybe it's hard to tell too, but the paper or the material that's used has this kind of laminated type of feel to it, and it has a sturdiness. It feels like a catalog. And that's what I think. It's right. It's supposed to be Diamond Treasure Collection, KMH Gems and Jewelry Catalog. That's the conceit of this. And you can actually tell there's some pictures here that are meant to mimic the catalog look, along with an order form. Again, this is from 2012. And then amongst this, you have the various, say, listings of cast and crew, and then the essay, or there are two writings here, plus the information about the transfer and the presentation and the release itself. But I should mention too here the essay. I mentioned it a little bit before, the J. Hoberman essay, which is called Taking It to the Rack. Talking about the Safdie brothers, their career, their filmography leading up to Uncut Gems, talking about the cinematic legacy that might provide some interesting through lines, mentioning also of this New York attitude, New York style, representations of the city in film, and also types of these very intense personal stories that are that have found voice in films of, say, Spike Lee or Martin Scorsese, and now the Safdie brothers, as well as an in-depth analysis into certain aspects of the film, including the various character relationships and dynamics. Of course, at the center, Howard, the key character of Howard, and then I made the reference, or I mentioned the fact that it makes the reference, the essay does, to Sergio Leone, which when I read it was mind-blowing, and when I thought of that particular scene in Uncut Gems that Jay Hoberman is referring to, yes, that is so on point. Wow. So yes, I would actually. It's a great essay. Like with all other essays, please read it after you've seen the film, because it does have certain specific details about the film. So that's the first writing. The second writing is called An Unserious Man. And it says here, the following conversation transpired during an, quote, emergency meeting of the editorial staff of Jewish Currents to discuss what Uncut Gems says about contemporary Jewish identity, end quote. It was originally published on the magazine's website on January 23rd, 2020. That magazine being, again, Jewish Currents. And here we have a discussion that is transcribed between or among the editorial staff. And I actually looked online too for Jewish Currents, and you can actually find this also online still. If you do Jewish Currents and you look for Uncut Gems or the January 23rd, 2020, you can find it. So here we have a discussion again about Jewish identity or Jewish American identity in the context of Uncut Gems. And they go into some real deep and detailed and sometimes very, very critical, I think interestingly so, aspects and discussions about Jewish identity, Jewish American identity, with Howard and with Uncut Gems overall, and also how that plays into other aspects of multiculturalism in the context of New York, in the context of how other maybe races and ethnicities are portrayed in the film Uncut Gems, in the context of this discussion anyway, and other aspects of that sort. So it's, again, this is a sort of discussion which is, I'm not able to understand all of the references to Jewish American cultural identity. I do my best, but it's very difficult for me to get everything. So to have this type of writing, which is done also in a very, I think, fresh and very lively way, which makes it very compelling reading. Also combined with many of the comments that we saw and heard in the supplements and the commentary track, make for some really compelling considerations of this aspect of the film. So I'm so glad it's included here as part of this discussion. And then I just want to say once again that this booklet is top notch. It's so great. I didn't realize I would just be so blown away by this, but I am, and just these little details here, all the way back, and then look at the back here, and again, just the quality is just off the charts. Great stuff. This is stellar stuff from Criterion and from all involved for this work. So that's the booklet here of this Uncut Gems, this Digipack 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo edition, which is right here. Again, spine number 1101. This is great. This is really great. One of the best of the year from Criterion. Let me say that again. From my vantage point, for my money, this release of Uncut Gems is one of the best of the year. And I'm saying that from someone who's still new, relatively speaking, to this film. I'm still trying to watch it many times, or I must try to watch it more times. And so hopefully I will do so in the weeks, months, and years to come. But that being the case, this Criterion release for me is a wonderful way for me to maintain a re-engagement and rediscovery of this work. It's stellar. It's brilliant. It's again, fireworks galore are in store for you when you watch this work from the Safdie brothers, 2019's Uncut Gems. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very, very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.